If you have used CSS in a large, complex project, you know that CSS can quickly get hard to maintain. This is because the CSS that we use today lacks a lot of features. And this is where a CSS preprocessor can help. With a CSS preprocessor, we can use features that don't exist in CSS yet. So we write the CSS code of the future, and this preprocessor will then convert our code into valid CSS that browsers can understand today. This is exactly like how we use TypeScript to write JavaScript. So TypeScript, as you have seen in this course, has a lot of features that we don't currently have in JavaScript. So we write our code in TypeScript, and then our TypeScript compiler compiles, or more accurately, transpiles our TypeScript code into JavaScript. A CSS preprocessor is exactly the same. Now, there are various kinds of CSS preprocessors out there, and each support slightly different set of features. But more or less, they are the same. We've got less, SASS, stylus, and perhaps a few other preprocessors. Angular CLI by default supports SASS, which stands for Syntactically Awesome Style Sheet. So in this lecture, I'm going to give you a brief introduction to SASS and how to use it in an Angular application. Even if you are familiar with SASS, make sure to watch this lecture at least to learn how to use SASS in an Angular project. So, in the source folder, I'm going to create a new file and call it theme.scss. So this is short for Sassy CSS, okay? Now we need to register this new file in Angular CLI configuration. So open up angularcli.json, and here in the styles array, add the path to our new Sass file, that is theme.scss. So this path is relative to the source folder. So here, both these files are located inside the source folder, okay? Now, to see Sass in action, first I'm going to go to app.html and add a couple of headings. One is h1, let's say heading 1, and the other is h2, heading 2. Let's say we want both our headings to be blue. So, in traditional CSS, this is how we implement that. We add h1, color blue, and h2, color blue. Now, the problem with this implementation is that if in the future I decide to change blue to purple, then I have to modify two different places. Now, there is a better way to write this. So now we only have to change one place. But what if h1 and h2 need different set of styles? Maybe we want more padding in our h1. So we can put all the shared styles here. Again, we need to separate them. So this approach, even though it works, it's not easy to maintain. And as your application grows, it becomes harder and more complex. So that's where Sass shines. With Sass, we can define variables and give them a value, and then reuse that variable in multiple places. Exactly like how we have variables in JavaScript and TypeScript. So here I can define a variable with a $sign and call that color. Set it to blue. Now we can have two different set of rules for our h1 and h2, like this. Now here h1 can have a bunch of attributes, but it can also have color, and we set that color to this $color variable. Okay, and similarly we can use this color here. Now in the future, I can simply come back here and change this blue to green, and both these are automatically updated. Now back in the browser, we don't see our changes yet, because changes to Angular CLI are not visible unless you recompile your application. So back in the terminal, stop this, and one more, ng serve. And now both our headings are green. Beautiful. So this is how the magic happens. We give this Sass file to the Sass preprocessor, and Sass will replace this color variable with this actual value. So it's going to generate CSS like this. Just going to delete this and add green in these two places. Okay, so this is eventually what we give to the browser. Now let's revert this back. All right, so this is our original SASS file. Now let's take a look at another feature. Here we have this import statement, just like we have this in CSS. But the beautiful thing about this is that here we can import another SASS file. And when we give this theme.scss to SASS, SASS will import all the styles defined in another.scss and put them here, as if all of these were part of one file. So SASS is going to concatenate all of our SASS files into one file. So this is the import statement. Now let's take a look at another powerful feature called mixin. So I'm going to delete all this code. Define two classes, box. This box is going to have a border, 1 pixel, solid. And the border radius should be 5 pixel with a padding of 10 pixels. Now I'm going to have another class here. Let's call this modern box. I want this modern box to also have these 3 attributes, but perhaps with a few other attributes here. Now we can certainly use variables here, and instead of repeating these values, we can store them in 3 different variables. But again, we have to repeat these 3 attributes for each of these classes. To solve this problem, we use a mixin. A mixin is like a collection of multiple attributes. So we add @mixin, give it a name. Let's call this soft border. And now in curly braces, we add all the shared attributes. So I'm going to move all these here and delete them from here as well. Now we can reuse these attributes in various places by including our mixin. So here I add include. The name of our mixin is soft-border. And then we call it like a function. You may ask why? Because here we can also pass arguments to this function, and that's what I'm going to show you in a second. So let's include this in this modern box as well. So this is the benefit of a mixin. Now I told you that we can add arguments to a mixin. So here, let's say I want to be able to pass the border radius from the outside. So we add a parameter, just like how we had parameters to our functions in TypeScript. Let's call this border-radius. And then instead of hard coding 5 pixels here, we can add border radius. And then when calling this function, we pass an argument, 5 pixel. And perhaps here 10 pixel. So see, not only can we reuse certain attributes, but we also get the ability to make slight variations. So this was a very basic introduction to SASS. There is more to SASS than we can cover in this video, and that's something you need to learn on your own. But these 3 features that you learned in this lecture, that was variables, mixins, and imports, we're going to see them in the next lecture where we define a custom theme for our application.